Hello and welcome to another episode of Athletics for Life podcast. We're your hosts, Jeff and CD. We're a couple of athletic directors in Mongolia who are looking to better our programs by interviewing interesting people in the world of sports, former alumni, and athletic directors. This season, we are primarily focused on interviewing athletic directors throughout Asia. We're trying to get to as many countries as possible, and in today's episode, we'll be knocking another one off our list. So, Jeff, why don't you go ahead and introduce today's guest?
Yes, I will do that. So today we're going to Manila, to the Philippines, and we have our second female AD or activities director on our podcast today. Catherine Tanco Ong is the director of student activities for Brent International School in Manila. She's been there over 10 years, and we are very excited to hear about her school, her programs, and to learn more about her philosophy on sports. So we're going over to Manila, the Philippines.
Let's go to the Philippines. All right. So, Kathy, why don't you take a moment just to start and tell us a little bit about where you're from, where you're at now, and the school that you're at.
Well, yes. Okay, I'll do that. Thank you for inviting me. So right now I'm actually in the United States, but my title is Director for Student Activities, and I work for a school in the Philippines called Brent International School. And we are completely online still right now. I think we're probably the last or second to the last country who is still operating not on campus, not in person. And so it's been tough. We have it down to a well-oiled machine, so it's working, but we still can't wait to get back.
Yeah, we've been back this whole school year so far, and it's been really nice, just to have the kids back and actually, have some practices. There's still challenges, but it's definitely way better than being online.
Right. And I've learned to be grateful for small things now. So even if we can just have practices and no games and no outside competition come in, the fact that we can even just have training or just pick up games or against the faculty, I'm so looking forward to that.
How long have you been online now, Kathy? Did you start the school year online and last year you were online?
Yeah, so we started our first day online, I think was March 16, 2020. And so we've been online ever since. There's talk now of us going back. The Philippines is starting to pick up its vaccination implementation. And so that's looking good. And there's a pilot now for local schools and for some international schools and some private schools to start in the low risk areas. Our area right now is not low risk, but we're prepared and we're ready. And the moment the government says we can go back to in person, we're ready to do so in whatever form that's going to look like. Slowly, maybe different younger age groups. I mean, you all have been through that, so yeah, we're just kind of last in the long line.
Yeah, we were talking to John Zahara last week actually, and he was almost saying like, we don't want to go back face to face, kind of, because they have so much going on online. It was actually funny that what will it be when we go back?
Well, and with Christmas break coming up too, if we do go back online, that's going to be a major interruption to a system that's running very smoothly right now. And we will have exams third week or part of the second week of December. And so that is going to be very interesting. Now, obviously, we have to follow what the government says we can do. And so we're not sure, but our parents really want to go back. Some of our kids want to go back. Others are afraid. So it's interesting times. And so that Christmas break may come into play if we don't get back sooner rather than later. So yes, it's a bit stressful right now to what we're going to do and when.
Yeah, it's we were there, last year. I think a lot of the things that you're mentioning, we've been through in some way, shape, or form. Let's back up just a moment, because I'm sure COVID and the struggles that we're facing will come up pretty regularly throughout the podcast. But how did you get involved in being the athletic director, activities director? How did you kind of get into this world?
So my title is Director for Student Activities, and so I have a very strange path into being an athletic director. I've been an athlete, pretty much all my life. I love sports. I love playing. I love watching. But that was not what my first career was. My main career, which I was doing for 12 years, was in the broadcast industry in the Philippines. It was, for a television station, and so that was my main career for 12 years. But I also got involved in Little League. And so I coached my daughter's team and my son's team, coached my son's baseball team. And so, well, to make a long story short, I was hired at Brent to be the baseball coach. And then that kind of led to my coaching volleyball and softball. I dabbled in basketball a little bit. But yeah, so strange way to come in. And my predecessor, who was a legend, his name is Charles Bates, really good, many years at the job and can do everything, knew everything. He was set to retire, and he recommended me to take his place. I think it was quite a shocker, probably, because I didn't, come from academe or wasn't a PE teacher. I just was helping out in the activities office, and I was coaching multiple sports. And so one thing led to another, and my head of school said yes. And so I've been here now for 11 years.
Wow, that's a very interesting path to go to the AD kind of role, activities role. Wow.
Yes, it's
So
very
you've been there
different.
now 10, 11 years, right, at Brent International School, Manila. Is this something, is this the place you want to stay longer, or are you actually looking to moving in the future?
No, I right now my plans are to stay. I love it. The school is terrific, and the community spirit is very good. It's very warm. We're very welcoming. Our faculty, our staff, our parents are great. Very supportive all around. It's a nice community. For new teachers coming in, we're very welcoming, and that goes to new students as well. So it's a great place to be. Obviously not now COVID times, but in general, it's a very collegial, friendly place to be. And so my plan is to stay there for a number of years, if they'll still have me. Hopefully COVID won't disrupt that path.
Well, I hope not. I hope not. Can you talk a little bit more about the programs you're having at Brent International School? Which conference you compete, and what kind of sports you have over there?
So we compete in the Asia Pacific Activities Conference, just like those people you've interviewed, Paul, you said, and John Zahara and Sim Cook. We are one of those schools. We're one of the smaller schools in that, although Sim also has a relatively small school. But that's our main league, our main conference. We also have a JV conference, which is called the International School Activities Conference, and that is within the Philippines. We do travel, most of them by car, but like an 8-hour drive sometimes, or we get on a plane and hop to another island. So those are our two main conferences. But I also, volleyball and basketball are huge in the Philippines. So those are the sports that every Saturday we run for the season. We run major leagues, and I could have anywhere from 43 to 60 games running 6 courts for volleyball, because we can do that, run side by side courts. For basketball, obviously we need the whole court. We can't break it up. But we'll have 30 games in a day running 1, 2, 3, 4 basketball courts. So sports in the Philippines, especially basketball, is really, really big. But we also have rugby and touch rugby, and so the Asia Pacific Activities Conference, APAC, there is a certain required number of sports and performing arts that you have to maintain. You have to field a team or a group in order to be a part of the league. And those don't change much, although recently we took tennis off the required list and moved that into what we call divisional, so that's optional. So we've got other sports like softball, baseball, badminton. Badminton is now required. It's very popular in China, and we've got 6 schools from China. So yeah, so those are our main sports. Soccer also.
Wow, that's quite a lot. I would really appreciate if I could borrow one of your basketball courts just once in a while. If I could just have an extra one, that would be great. But have four, that's amazing. How do you balance the activities side of things? We often interview a lot of athletics directors where their focus is just on athletics. Some people have that title of activities as well. So how do you balance it at your school?
Yeah, I'm forced to balance it because I'm in charge pretty much K through 12 of everything that doesn't carry a grade. So that includes student councils, and our visual and performing arts department is huge and quite popular, as it is wont to be in most Asian countries, right? I have okay, how do I balance it? My secret weapon is my assistant activities director. Her name is Luella Floresca, and she's also head of the performing arts department, and she's a teacher. So I don't get her 100% of the time, but she is invaluable and she's very helpful, and she knows. I mean, I've learned a lot also about performing arts, but she is just a wonderful asset to have in the department. My recommendation is if you can have somebody like that as your assistant director, then you want that.
Keep dreaming, CD. Keep dreaming.
In our conference in APAC, we have, I think, first season. In fact, we're working on a virtual version right now with Sim and John. Yeah. We have dance, orchestra, and choir. That's season 1, performing arts for APAC. And then season 2, we do theater and band. And so since Eunice is fully online right now, we're in the same boat. Sim at Canadian Academy in Japan, they are in person. So it's going to be an interesting event because we're going to have Western Academy of Beijing, CAISB in Beijing. They'll all be in person. So their groups will be in person, but then John and I will be remote. So it's the first time we're doing it. And so fingers crossed that everything goes well and that the kids have fun. That's the most important.
That's the most important thing, right? But I think you guys in APAC, you really work well together, right? It seems like a really strong core group.
Yes. Thank you for saying that. We really do have a strong core, and we have the same philosophies. It's about the league, and it's not selfish, like what's best for our teams and our schools. It's what's best for the league and our schools. So yes, we do work really well together, and we've got quite a good handbook that we refer to, and obviously a lot of editing goes into that, but it's collegial. We get along really well. Thank goodness.
Yeah. I think what you're saying about the handbook is very important, because CD and I have been in Mongolia a while now, and we had no handbook a few years ago. And drafting that has really forced us to look, and to make our programs even better. I think having a good handbook is super important, and work together on that.
It is, and I can't say that the current group created it. It's been around for a long time, but every year, I mean, there's tons of edits that goes into it just to make it better, or to make that event a better event, or run more smoothly, or more fair, or whatever the times call for. When I first became AD, my head of school said, "Yep," raised my hand, said that we'll take care of editing the handbook. And I was like, "What? Quiet, sit down." But it was actually the best thing that could have happened, because it forced me to read the entire thing. So I thought of you guys when you said that you created your own handbook, which is great, because then you know it like the palm of your hand.
Yeah, it was definitely a challenge, because we're picking and choosing things from, we're at the time I was at ASU, and so we were part of ACAMUS. Jeff's a part of ACAMUS as well, so we're stealing things from them, or stealing things from different schools that Jeff's been at, and then just kind of piecemealing this whole thing together that also makes sense for just us and our schools in Mongolia. So it was definitely a good exercise. I think Jeff did a bulk of the work, and I was mostly just proofreading and tweaking little things here and there. So, but it was good. Like you said, it made us read the whole thing, and just, we use it, we refer back to it. So it's a good practice.
Well, and there's a lot that can be shared, amongst us ADs, and that's one of the things I like about the NIAAA organization is that that's what they believe in. They believe in sharing, and so with that mindset, I've now come to be able to ask, for people to share things with me, and in turn also be able to share. So if you guys need anything, I'd be happy to share whatever I have or whatever we have that is shareable.
Kathy, do you have access to our notes? So Jeff and I, we have a little secret note document that we just put some little things in. Okay, ask this, and literally we're both highlighting PD and to ask you about professional development. And then you mentioned the NIAAA. I was curious, not only with the NIAAA, but also with your conference. Do you do anything with your conference as far as PD? And if not, what other things do you do to get professional development?
So for our APAC conference, we don't have anything that we do PD, like we don't bring somebody in specifically for our conference, but we meet twice a year. And in that, it's just a bunch of learning. It's at the IRCOS conference. It's the East Asia Regional Council of Schools. It's a huge workshop. And within that conference, we have professional development sessions and workshops, and then we have our meeting tacked on to that conference. And so we go there, we meet, and then we also attend the conference and learn. For my coaches, it's one of the areas that I started to try to be better at in the past couple of years, well, until COVID hit. But so the NIAAA has taught me that, and I've met some prospective, like Doug Kilgore, I saw was one of the guys you had worked with in your conference, I think, and he's done something online for me. He also came to my school. He also came to the IRCOS conference because the NIAAA, was able to send. He's a teacher, a facilitator out to teach some of the LTI courses. So all of that basically is not geared towards APAC conference, but we are there as an APAC organization plus our individual schools, and so it just rolls around really easily and really nicely.
Yeah, we actually had Doug Kilgore was our first guest on the podcast a year and a half ago. Yeah, he was awesome.
Doug's terrific. I hope I'll see him in Denver this next month.
So, because you can go there, right? You're in the US, so you're going to Denver to the conference?
My plan is to go to Denver, yes. There's a lot to be learned. I've signed up for a couple of LTI courses. I'm getting to teach 2 of them, and I'll attend a lot of the workshops. So yeah, if you guys have never been, I highly recommend that you attend if you can. I know it's hard now, but in the future, because those will never stop. And now that they're back in person, fantastic event to attend. Great PD, great socializing, great networking.
Yeah, just for anyone listening, just to back up 1 second, what we're referring to is the national conference for the NIAAA. That is let me see if I can get the acronym correct. It's not right in front of me. The National Institute of No, I'm already wrong.
No, CD, sorry. It's a National Interscholastic Athletic
That's
Administrator Association.
I always get the I wrong, and then it messes the rest of it up for me. But we actually met Kathy. I believe you were teaching a course or leading a session. And then that's where we connected and reached out to have her on the podcast. So for any athletic directors who are maybe listening and weren't sure exactly what we were talking about, there is a big national conference being held in Denver this year. Unfortunately, I don't think Jeff and I will be able to make it this year, but hopefully in the future we'll be able to attend.
I look forward to that.
Yeah.
Kathy, can you talk a little bit about the course that you're teaching? Because for me, I'm from the Netherlands, and I never heard of the NIAAA before, like 5 years ago. And then COVID hit, of course, and the online courses, the 900 courses started, which are the international courses. Can you talk a little bit about the international courses, the certification, and which course you're teaching?
So the 900 courses, by the way, so there's 901, 902, 903, 904, and the 901 and 902 are basically 901 is basic. international athletic director, what's involved in it. And then 902 goes a little bit deeper into that. 903 is more about philosophy of an athletic director in your program. And then 904 deals more about child safeguarding, which we in the international realm deal a lot with because of the homestays or hotel stays. I mean, everybody deals with it, but I think we have an added angle to it. And so we are currently developing 910, which is in line with the 710, 610 series. And that will have 6 different subtopics, of which 4 will be decided. This is, by the way, this is not being taught this year. The hope is that the course is done and taught next year in 2022. But then it'll be the same format as the other 710 A's and B's, I think they are. And some of the topics are inclusivity, homestay and hotel stay, which who knows where that's going to go, after COVID, and how to hire and retain coaches. So I'm teaching 901. So it's a very basic one. And I'm also teaching a new course that is LTI 716, and that's about communicating with parents, how parents, I mean, the basic course theme, I think, is that parents should be part of your group. They're actually part of the team, and how can you develop that? How can you make that a great relationship is basically what that course is about.
Yeah, that sounds like one that I'll have to take because, I think Jeff would agree, in Mongolia, it's quite challenging, even before COVID, to get parents involved, to try to get people in the stands and fans from the community to come to the games. It's not a huge sporting culture in terms of volleyball or basketball. And as far as going to high school athletic events, so trying to get those parents involved there's a few hurdles in the way, a few obstacles in the way, right? To get them in the door and then keep them and make them feel like they are an asset and part of the team. So that would definitely be a great course for myself personally.
Are they more focused on academics? Is that the reason why?
Yeah, I think a lot of the parents are, and they don't understand, from my experience, they don't understand how important the sports are to their kids. Right. And they don't realize that, their kids are really passionate about volleyball or really passionate about football. And there are a couple that do, and they're at the games and they're always bringing them to extra practices. But a lot just don't realize like this is a big part of their kids' lives. So,
and that's one of the things I liked when I read your synopsis of athletics for life. Is, what did you guys say? It is a metaphor for life, and whatever you learn in athletics, you bring, with you. You carry that with you for the rest of your lives. And what else did you guys say? You create better people, not better athletes. So
yeah,
I like that. Yeah.
Thanks. Which that actually leads into our next little thing we've got highlighted on our secret notes. What's your sports philosophy, and how do you bring that to your job? A lot of ADs, they follow the PE teacher route and they're in academia, and you've kind of come at it from a different angle. So I'm curious to hear what's your philosophy and how do you implement that in your program?
So right now, my philosophy is education-based athletics, and what you guys had put is that I feel that as a coach and as an AD, it's our jobs to mentor these children, not to be better players or more skilled in the sport they do, but to develop them to be better people and to better serve the community. And I think as coaches, I think that is every coach's job. And it's a little bit tough because, well, I came from being what I call an external coach or a local coach, and I have local coaches coaching for me. I have got faculty coaches and I have local coaches, and so I know my first day that I was hired as a baseball coach. This is when I went to volleyball. I was yellow carded right away on day one, and so I've kicked an umpire before. I had to learn education-based athletics, and so I'm 100% full believer in that now. My sportsmanship has always been fairly good, except maybe with umpires, but otherwise, education-based athletics, the whole child, developing the whole child in all aspects. And that's not just sports and the lessons you learn in sports. That's also in the performing arts and theater, and how they have down days too, and how do you mold those kids to be resilient and get through that. And so, yes, a lot of what you guys had said in your synopsis for Athletics for Life is what I believe. But yes, I had to learn it. And so now I teach it for my coaches, external coaches. I actually started, because I would get into trouble sometimes with the way they acted, because it was all about winning. Unfortunately, part of the Philippine culture for coaches and high-level coaches and even high school coaches is, if you don't have a winning record, you're going to lose your job. And I didn't believe that at first. And then I actually saw it with my very own eyes. A coach got fired because he finally, after 6 years of my team losing to him, finally he lost to us, lost his job. And so that was a big lesson for me, that that's really where they come from. And so I had to orient my external coaches to tell them that our goal is not to win. Our goal is to develop the child and train them properly, but you have to have all these other things as well. Treat them well, be equitable. You want to train everybody, no favoritism. Don't pat them on the butt. I mean, a lot of the child safeguarding elements also came into that workshop that I put together. And it was amazing, because if I would get, let's say, 10 complaints a year, now I was getting 1 or 2. So I would highly recommend that to a new AD.
It sounds very similar, like here in Mongolia. This is kind of the reason why we started the podcast, Kathy, because we saw things in the community happening with external coaches, and the kids learn through them the wrong habits, and they bring it back to our building in our program. So we were like, we should do something about this. So we wanted to talk and share. Can you explain a little bit how you do that with your coaches and even your student athletes? How do you do your sessions? Do you do pre-season meetings, mid-season meetings? Kind of how you have that process in place?
Oh, I don't do a parents meeting. None of my coaches actually do a parents meeting. It's not very popular in the Philippines. Definitely team meetings. I do a lot of team bonding, like personally with the teams I coach. I do a lot of team bonding sessions, and these are all positive. There's never any negative, never a bull session. It's all, if you have something nice to say, if you don't have anything nice to say, then don't say anything, basically. So a lot of team bonding, and I noticed that other coaches do that as well. And for those coaches that don't do that, I try to promote that. So yeah, that's how we try to. In general, the sportsmanship is quite good at Brent, and we've won several sportsmanship awards in the APAC realm. So I'm quite proud of that. So we won a little bit too, so that's nice. When you can win and get the sportsmanship award, that means a lot.
So Kathy, you'll be the second female that we've had on the podcast. We've been trying, but it's definitely a male dominated sport. So not to take it in a totally different direction, but do you think about that, about empowering your girls at your school to play and to be involved? And you mentioned making it equitable and teaching your coaches that it's equitable. How do you incorporate that into your whole program to make sure that across sports, across genders? I think that's something that had come up in one of the LTI courses about equity and making everything fair for both genders, your different age groups, your different sports. How do you do that at your school, Kathy?
Yeah, we don't have many Title IX complaints and that sort of thing. And I guess I'm lucky because I inherited a program that deals equally, like whatever our boys program gets, pretty much our girls program gets, and that's even down to rugby. We do touch rugby. It's equipment wise, it's all the same. When I order, there's the males don't get more than the females. With regards to trying to influence the female population, the female students to get involved, that's a little bit trickier, but we don't have very many high school students, and so those that compete in season 1 normally compete in season 2 and then compete in season 3, and those who are not athletic or don't like sports, they're very much involved in the fine and performing arts. And I actually really don't see much gender inequality, and I know that's a bit strange, and I try to keep my eyes open to it now that I've been made more aware of it, but I don't see a lot of it. What I do see is, now that I've become an AD and that I also coach, I will have a lot of my female athletes come up and say, I want to coach when I get older. And some of them even say, well, I want to be an athletic director when I grow up. And so they're seeing that. And I guess growing up with that makes them think that, yeah, that's also possible. So hopefully that influences them even without their knowing it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we actually talked to this is also a nice bridge to a different topic, because we've been talking about alumni a little bit, Kathy, through LinkedIn, because you had a few alumni that would be good for our podcast, because we interview alumni too. And actually we had one last year that wanted to be an AD. And I was like, and I never expected that from him, but he's like, yeah, the school really inspired me, and the coaches and the students around me. So that's great if they want to go into that profession or coaching.
Right. Yes. And especially if they're females, because as you said, it's a male dominated area. And in our conference right now, we have 3 out of 12 females. Yeah. So that's pretty much the average. When I do a head count in the room, it comes out to about the same.
Are they mainly staff female coaches, or from outside that you hire?
It is very difficult to hire female coach, both external and in the faculty. And so I have a very supportive headmaster, a very supportive admin, and they, before we go out recruiting, I actually sit down and have a one-on-one with my headmaster, and he asks, okay, all things being equal, what do you need? And this year it's basketball. I'm losing 3 basketball coaches, and always in the back of that conversation is, if you can hire a female basketball coach or a female, volleyball coach, female soccer coach, please do, because it's really, really tough to find female coaches. So yeah, I have one now, and I'm bribing her never to leave, Brent.
Yeah, I've been lucky, Kathy, because one of my female basketball players, the girl, she was like, yeah, I'm playing with this woman from the US Embassy. She's a Marine, and she would love to come over here and coach. I'm like, okay, give me her contact. I'm going to get her in right now, because we don't have many of those. Yeah. So you have to get them in if you can. You have to be fast.
Okay. Yes. And thankfully my head of school is cognizant of that. Yeah. Otherwise it's going to cost the school money, right? Because if I have 2 male coaches coaching a female team, then I have to send an extra chaperone. So yeah, that's how I can angle it as well. Hey, save money,
Yeah, you've always got to find that way in with the admin, right? Just how you can sell your program and package it to get what you need for your sports. So let's circle back. We had mentioned it at the beginning of the show about COVID and how you guys are still online. What do your programs look like now that you are online, and how are you keeping your students engaged? And is it working?
Well, I'll start with the bad news first, is that my poor athletes have nothing. So that's the bad news. Now, the good news is most of the other activities we've been able to put online, we used to have about 110 clubs or ASAs every semester. And I was able to put 56 online. I mean, and that's not kudos to me, that's kudos to the faculty who have agreed. They say, yeah, I'm gonna do that club or this club. And so 56 have now gone online, and we had record numbers of enrollment. And this is from middle school to upper school, high school. We've been able also to bring performing arts, our plays, both for middle school and upper school, also online. There are avenues now for that, and that's getting to be more and more commercially easy. You can, there was a streaming platform that I used for the first time for the middle school production just a couple of weeks ago, and that worked really well. What else? Student council elections online, and a lot of their activities are also online. And one of the main things that they're focusing on now is to bond and to socialize. So they have Kahoot games. They'll have like batch bonding sessions on a Friday after school, but it's all online, and they've gotten it to work with fairly good attendance. My varsity council, which I think Sim refers to as athletic councils, my varsity council has done a lot to try to keep school spirit intact. They have lots of social media posts, and the most recent one, just to give you an example, is of my headmaster doing a juggling session. So, videos of that, or they'll have somebody doing a cooking session. And so they have been extremely creative with their posts and their activities. We also have been able to transfer our Spirit Week. We have a huge, we're house, we have like, we have house, we have Gold House, Azure House, Emerald House. And so we have that system. And we normally have a very large, very popular across the school Spirit Week, where we dress up in different themed costumes from Monday to Thursday. And then on Friday, we have a huge house rally, and there's like 3,000 people in our gym, including parents and the whole school. And we run games and for house points. We were able to do that in a modified way online as well, with lunchtime games. And so we've been able to do that. What else have we brought online? I'm trying to think. So I said our musicals, visual and performing arts. They have not suffered like our athletes have suffered. Well, they haven't suffered as much because we've been able to continue. We've had APAC auditions for all of the visual and performing arts. And on December 10, we're going to have 3 different 3-hour workshops where we've hired, like there's a big name guy, Robert Guy. He's a conductor from the UK in orchestra, and he's going to give a workshop. And then at the end of that, we're calling it an APAC collaboration. At the end of that, all the schools that are participating are submitting pre-recorded pieces that they've done. And so that's going to be like the finale show. And so we're doing that for dance as well, and choir. And so we've got workshop presenters for both of those, all 3 of those. And so that's one thing that our kids, that's just this year. Last year, we didn't do that. And I noticed that the interest of those students was starting to wane, and now it's perked up. So that has been really good. Yeah, so those are some of the things we've been able to put online. We have a huge international food fest. It's like our fair. And obviously we couldn't do that, but we were able to take one of the big parts of it, which is the talent show. And so we were able to put that online as well last year, and we will do the same this year.
I found listening to all the ADs doing all these different things online super creative, super inspiring. Listening to that, you're doing so much online for your kids. That's amazing.
I find it tougher, actually. I mean, if I were to have had the house rally and the house photo, because we take house photos of all 3 houses, that's a whole school, Emerald, the whole, whoever's in Emerald, whoever's in Asia. It's so much easier in person. This year I had to do 3 separate ones, and it's really a lot more work. So I can't wait to get back.
You talked a little bit about your athletes that suffered for the last year and a half, 2 years. What are some of when you go back to playing games, are there some changes you're going to implement, or are your programs changing a little bit structure-wise or practices?
We will be changing structure-wise. I mean, obviously, if you're talking about COVID protocols, that will all be in place. We're going to start very, very slowly. It's funny, but right now, any organized sport is probably going to take a while to get back up and running. I just recently submitted ideas for just merely socialization for when we go back. Like this, I'm talking about our first month on campus, and so my headmaster had some great ideas about putting ping pong tables, just strewn them all over the place, and what other types of things can we do to teach these kids who haven't seen each other for many, many months? What can we do to teach them how to become friends and how to socialize again? And so I've taken that and ran with it. I'll try to put games all over, and then have one outdoor gym that just has volleyball king of the court style, where anybody can play. So the organized teams, those are going to take a while to happen, but for other activities, that can happen right away. And I've tapped who can be supervisors, and I mean, and it's not all athletics. I was thinking putting up a lounge where we'll have chess boards and other board games, and then maybe have another section, not at the same time, and obviously we can rotate these events, but having a DJ, and like a student being a DJ, and then a movie session with a big screen on the field, things of that nature, just to get the kids back up and running. So unfortunately, back to the athletes, I mean, we will have something for them. I'm fortunate that I've got 2 courts that can be considered outdoors. They're covered, but they're really open. And so I do plan on having training sessions in those areas when the time comes. Oh boy, yes.
I love it. I love the idea of just throwing ping pong tables in every corner of the building, and so kids can just play and get to know each other. We're struggling a little bit with that, with just kids being back together and not knowing how to act. And it was fine at first. I think at first they were just so like, oh my gosh, we're back in school, we're back with our friends. And now that they've been back together, I'm finding that the behavior starting to dip a little bit now. And in November, I think just, okay, now they're seeing what the boundaries are and how far can they push it.
And that's why fun things like spike ball and things that you might just have around would help with that, because
what has been one of your biggest learning experiences? Maybe it depends on how you want to answer the question, Kathy, whether it's something COVID related or just as your role as an athletic director. What's one of the biggest things you've had to learn?
One of the biggest things I've had to learn is how to deal with adversity, with parents complaining. So I would say that, and I'm far from being an expert at it. I've come a long way, and one of the biggest things I've learned is that my job is to de-escalate a situation and not make it worse. And when I'm faced with, let's say, not one of my parents normally, but let's say somebody who's a visiting parent, and they're ramping up and becoming out of hand, or I mean, I've seen a lot. A parent has pulled down his pants at our school. That was out of happiness for his son's team winning. I see 3 dads beat up another dad, and these were not my parents, right? So just situations like that, and how to deal with those type of situations. And bottom line is, I have learned that, again, de-escalate the situation. Do not engage. So that's one of the things. I'm trying to think of what else. In the job, I think that a lot of my job is logistics and planning and organizing. And so that's another thing that I've had to learn is how to come up with a good plan, how to implement it, and then definitely how to have a backup plan and a backup to the backup plan.
Yeah, you will see, Kathy, once you get those COVID protocols started, you have to have an extra plan behind that. It's just an extra layer of difficulty. We had one event with that. It's 2 actually, and it's a lot. extra
Uh,
on your plate.
hopefully I'll be able to pick your brains, after this, and not when we're not recording.
Yeah, if you want some of our paperwork, just please let me know, and then we can send it over to you. It's been working okay for us, so yeah, let us know.
Thank you.
But parents fighting and parents pulling their trousers down, that's next level, Kathy. We've seen some interesting stuff in Mongolia, but not that.
Yeah, it's taught me a lot. It's taught me a lot.
What's something that you're most proud of accomplishing, Kathy, with your programs? Again, either in COVID or outside of COVID. What's something that you're proud of that you've accomplished?
I guess one of the main things is bringing more of a professional look and system to my athletics office, to the department. My worry is that if ever I leave, and if things aren't written down or recorded, or if there's no guide or protocols in place, it is difficult. And so that's one of the things I've tried to implement is to have either documents, guides, to-do lists available for whoever takes my place after I leave. So I guess in a way I would call that professionalizing my department. So that's one of the things I'm really proud of. I'm also proud that my coaches take the mentoring of their players seriously. And I try to reinforce that. I can't take all the credit for that, but I do espouse that and try to relay that to them. And so hopefully that's one of the things that happens actually. It seems like it. And so I'm hoping that continues.
You've already given some great tips for ADs, actually, the organization and staying calm and your paperwork and building your legacy for your school. What are some other tips for newer ADs or people want to become an AD that you say those are very important to have or to build?
Well, some of it I learned from the NIAAA, and that's about documentation. And so I really believe in that, keep documents of incidences or injuries, that type of thing, just so that if ever it becomes an issue, you have, my memory is bad. And so I write everything down, and it was unprofessional in the past. And so now I've created incident reports and injury reports. And so now, it'll come back to me, and because I do it right away, or have the coach do it, who's reporting, I have them list it right away. So that would be one of the tips I have, is to document as much as you can and then organize it. Google Docs has been invaluable now, and that's thanks to COVID. So the other thing I would recommend again would be have backup plans, like you said, be it COVID related or not COVID related. Always have a backup plan, because you never know when things are going to go wrong. So you do what you can to mitigate anything going wrong, but you'll feel better if you have a backup plan, and you'll know that you will still be able to be successful with that. Be good at planning and logistics. Communicate, especially the younger ages. I learned that also. The younger the student is, or the teams are, the more communication is needed, especially when there are changes. Change is my enemy. Oh my gosh. Even just in documentation, or I'm planning an APAC, one change and then there's a ripple effect, and so my office staff now come to feel the same way. It's like, oh no, there's a change. Okay, how can we make sure we got this, and that, from that chain reaction of the change. So yeah, and then de-escalate. That one I learned the hard way. So be that person, be that AD who does not escalate the situation. That would probably be my main one for new ADs.
Definitely. I actually had to learn that the first day on the job. Our athletic director at the time had something come up personal and had to leave partway through the year. And so then I was the athletic director at the tournament that next weekend. And there was a parent who was irate about something. That parent was also happening to coach So the team was without a coach for the rest of the tournament. And then because I knew some of the people on that other team, I actually stepped in as their replacement coach so they could have somebody like just helping organize who's subbing on and off. So yeah, I had to kick a parent / coach out and then coach his team for him.
That's like instant karma.
Yeah. Because otherwise they're just kind of lost and they would have to forfeit. And it's like, oh, I know the kids are good kids. And so,
right. Not their fault. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. We're just getting to the end of our show, Kathy. We've taken more than enough time from you. But the last question, what's kind of the future look for you? What does the future hold? I know a lot of it relies on what happens with COVID and your school, but maybe kind of walk us through what you're thinking.
Well, the immediate future is to get back to in person, and that looks like it's around the corner. So whether that is going to be in 2 weeks or starting in January, and then working through all of that as you guys have done, and the newness that's going to happen. And then I guess the intermediate future would be, what is my program going to look like for the next school year? Because if we lose, if our student body, because of COVID, I mean, all of us have lost, well, most of us have lost lots of enrollment. And if that continues, then that affects my whole program, be it in sports or fine and performing arts. So how do we pick and choose if we have to save one, which one are we going to let go? So that whole process of looking into that, if need be, I don't look forward to that. I don't think travel is in the books for us. Probably, yeah, maybe 6, 8, who knows, 12 months, maybe for the whole of next year. But I'm hoping that will happen, and I'm ready. I'm willing to do the work just to make that happen if it's safe, obviously. So that's that's kind of like the immediate, and then the intermediate, and then the future. So it'll just be trying to get back and how that will look, and the mental wellness of our students, I think, is going to be a prime focus.
Yeah, definitely. And Kathy, when are you planning to go back to the Philippines?
Well, if the government says we're going to go online in the next 2 weeks, then I'm going to have to find a flight and hop on a plane going back. And if not, I'll be back early January and preparing. But meanwhile, I work very strange and very long hours from wherever I am here. And it's not been easy, but it hasn't also been bad. And I think that production wise for me, I have been equally productive than if I had been in the Philippines working from my house. So.
Okay, oh, that looks good. Hopefully you can get back soon and the school can go back with the kids in the building. Yeah, we wish you all the best with that.
Yeah,
Thank
definitely.
you.
Good luck moving forward. I know it's a stressful time, and so many things are changing, and you like to be organized and have things planned, and it's not always possible.
Yeah.
So yeah, good luck with everything, Kathy. And we definitely appreciate you giving up some of your time to come on and chat with us. And yeah, thank you again. And we wish you all the best.
Well, thank you for having me. This has actually been fun. And yeah, I don't normally like to speak in public, but yeah, this has been great. And you guys have made me feel so relaxed.
Thank you. Thank you
Perfect,
very much.
Perfect.
So, thank
and
you.
Kathy, we will continue to talk about those alumni that you have in mind, because we would love to talk to them and to look at their perspective on the programs that back at your school. So yeah, let's keep in touch.
Yes, wonderful. And I hope to see you guys in person soon again.
Yeah. Fingers crossed.
That would be great. Yeah. Thank you, Kathy, so much for your time today. And yeah, thank you so much again.
Thank you guys too. And keep up the great work. Love what you're doing.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Bye, Kathy.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you too. Bye.
All right. So that was our interview with Kathy. Great interview. Kathy was pretty easy to talk to. We were lucky enough to meet Kathy before, both Jeff and I. What really stuck out to me, though, with our interview was and I don't know if we mentioned this on the podcast or not. I don't remember if it was off before we were recording, but the fact that she's working from the States. So she's doing everything online with a 10, 12, 13 hour time difference. And, they're still online, and we're lucky enough to be in school, practicing, dealing with COVID in our own ways. But, it's good for us, I think, to just realize kind of how lucky we are and what we're able to do, even though it's frustrating at times, like, okay, we've got to do this, we've got to manage that protocol. But at least we're in person practicing, playing games. And so, as much as it's frustrating, I do feel for people like Kathy or other schools that are maybe still quarantined and at home and doing online learning and trying to have practices over Zoom, whatever that looks like. So that was one big takeaway for me, is just kind of trying to keep it all in perspective.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's interesting. It's hard, man. If even we talked to John Zahara too, who's been online for a long time, right? And they create these amazing virtual programs, and we've been talking, how do you get back to normal life? And that's very interesting to hear. I hope she's back at this moment, and she was talking about flying back to Manila soon. So fingers crossed she's there and the programs can get back into face-to-face setting. Very interesting to hear from her too, how she rolled into her position as a coach. And then I found it very interesting that we all have different backgrounds. Some people come from a PE background or more. I know CD, you have more science and more background. And she is a coach, but we all, follow that kind of the philosophy aligns, along the way. And I think the NIAAA is a big part of that.
Yeah. We were lucky enough to have Kathy as one of the leaders or instructors for the course. She led the 903 course for international athletic directors. And she started as a news anchor or something in media and was hyper competitive as a coach and getting technical fouls. And then, through kind of self-reflection and learning and always trying to improve yourself. And I think probably taking on the athletic director role makes you take a step back a little bit. We kind of all reached that point where we realize it's just for the kids. We're trying to build as good a program as we can, whether it's through athletics or activities, like many of us have activities as well, just so our kids can be engaged and get the most out of our programs, no matter what kind of path you take to get to that AD role. It was really interesting talking to Kathy and just hearing her story about, her journey to the athletic director, because it's been really interesting talking to a lot of these ADs, because none of the two stories are the same. Like, there's certain similarities sometimes. Okay, PE teacher, coach, athletic director, maybe ION principal in the future, something like that. But I was a science teacher. She was a news anchor. Other people just knew that's what they wanted to do, was to be an athletic director. So they kind of set out for that right away. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah. And in the end, we all try to connect to each other, to learn from each other. That's why we have this podcast again. So I really recommend people to find a mentor or find like-minded ADs, even if they're outside of the country, especially, in these times, it's easy to connect with them and to learn, because we are learning every podcast something that we take away in our programs. So again, Kathy, we want to thank you for your time. It was lovely talking to you. Hopefully we see you in the future face to face. And I hope you enjoyed the podcast today.
Yeah, and if you're looking for people to connect with, a few good places are our prior episodes, just reaching out to some of the ADs we've had online or ourselves. Globetrotting ADs, we interviewed them last season. They're another great podcast to check out with athletic directors more around the Europe region. And then also the NIAAA is a really good organization if you just want to take some courses and learn, maybe better yourself as an athletic director and network at the same time. So those are just three places where you can go to find a mentor and find some people who are, dealing with a lot of the same issues you are. Don't forget to like and subscribe wherever you are consuming our content, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.